Okay, so for my project, I chose to look at the LEEDCO project Icebreaker. So this is a project that aims to bring wind turbines for offshore wind energy production in Lake Erie off the coast of Cleveland. And so the LEEDCO, Lake Erie Energy Development Corporation, designed and submitted this project proposal to the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy selected to give a number of projects financial assistance as long as they adhere to their U.S. offshore wind advanced technology demonstration projects initiative. Meaning they're looking for projects to install innovative offshore wind systems in the U.S. waters in the most rapid and responsible manner possible. And they also want to expedite the development and deployment of innovative offshore wind energy systems to help lower the levelized cost of energy production. So this project specifically designed by LEEDCO met those. It's going to help increase the renewable energy supply, decrease generation and delivery costs, promote energy diversity, decrease the foreign dependence on energy sources, decrease environmental impacts of energy production, and improve the U.S. energy grid security. And they worked with the Coast Guard and the Army Corps of Engineers, two federal agencies that provided permits for multiple reasons, and also helped with the analysis of the impacts associated with this project. So the project will create 6 wind turbines, each about 8 miles off the coast of Cleveland. They'll have submerged electric collection cables running from the turbines to a substation located on the mainland, which will convert the energy and provide it to homes throughout Cleveland proper. Overall, this project will improve the electric utility supply for customers. It helps reduce air pollution in a city that has historically bad air with lead, with known lead contaminants and ozone depletion. Greenhouse gas emissions will be reduced, and local jobs will be created to help spur economic development throughout the area. Okay, as I said, it's located off the shore of Cleveland, Ohio. Those are the 8 turbine sites that are proposed, with that substation running, with those cables running all the way in between them. So they'll create concrete foundations on the Lake Erie lake bed to erect these wind turbines. This is considered state land for the state of Ohio. So there's a submerged lands lease that has already been approved. They'll have to utilize the Port of Cleveland to stage construction supplies and make sure everything's good to be put into place during that construction phase. So they began this project in May of 2016. Well, they designed it before, but that's when they submitted it to the DOE. And the EA was completed in September of 2018. So a big part of that was the scoping process. They had a public meeting on September 28th with comments due by October 21st. The project and the meeting and everything else was announced by a scoping notice posted in the Cleveland Register, and also the Plain Dealer, which is the local newspaper. They sent roughly 5,000 emails out to various people who expressed an interest in learning more about the project. They might have been on a email list with the DOE's Wind and Water Technology Office or with the Army Corps of Engineers. They also posted about the project and the meetings on Facebook and Twitter. There were 60 people who showed up to the initial meeting, and 95 comments were received both from the meeting and online during this open comment period. They also received agency comments from NOAA, the Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory, the Fish and Wildlife Services, and the EPA. So it was a very extensive scope and process. I think they covered most, if not all, of their ends. There's not much left for them to do within this realm. They also contacted 29 tribes, got in touch with about 7 of them, but received no feedback. And then this graphic I posted, I think was just something really cool from the project. It's less related, but I thought it would be fun to share anyways. So they chose 8 miles because you can see on here that that's about the distance where the birds do not extend out to. So it wasn't just some generic number, but they wanted to find that distance where there would no longer be an impact to local bird populations. And they determined that to be 8 miles. So that increased the costs with, getting all the materials out there, as well as a longer cable than if they put it at 4 or 5. And one of the major impacts that I'll get into later was the windmills being an eyesore and kind of blocking that lakefront view. The further out they are, the harder they are to see, which this helps with that as well. Okay, so the impact analysis. So they did not find any major impacts to the social, economic, or socioeconomic well-being of the area. Any potential air quality impacts from construction would be offset by the operation and maintenance period of the project, meaning that the construction is going to create some pollution, but that'll quickly be turned around as the windmills begin to provide a clean energy source to the city of Cleveland. Overall, I would say it's negligible. They put minor. I think they're just kind of splitting hairs there. Same goes with climate change. Long term, it's not gonna increase climate change. The only instance where it would have a non-negligible impact is if the wind turbines are constructed, but then the operation fails for some reason. Meaning they made it through the end of the construction phase, but didn't get to the point where they could offset those negatives with any sort of gain down the road from having the clean air source. Lake use and traffic and transportation were what I thought would be most likely to be impacted, but the analysis here was pretty extensive and they found nothing to really be of major concern. Looking at sailboats that are used recreationally, they found that 99% have a maximum mast height below 65 feet. And that is the lowest point of the turbine blade from the water. So, there's not any concern with almost all sailboats running into the wind turbine should they sail under it. Beyond this, there are a number of fishing and sailing competitions, speedboat races, things of that such. And looking at the history of these, very few of them extend out to 8 miles from the shore. And beyond that, the buoys that have been used as course markers are not located within the expert cable route or the proposed wind turbine sites. So there's not really any concern with those either. Looking at the frequency of recreational use, only about 2% of boats were found to operate with it at some point within the 5-minute block covering the proposed wind turbine sites. It's very, very rare for boats to venture out there. I think with the construction of these, more boats would venture out there to look at them, but those would be alert operators using that as their recreational means. So they're pretty unlikely to have any problems avoiding them or creating any damage to either the windmills or their boats. The turbines would also be marked and lighted in accordance with navigational rules to help provide additional safety measures. One thing I found really interested in reviewing this was how they looked at cultural resources. They seemed most concerned with historic structures such as shipwrecks and any artifacts present that may be directly affected. So they used a lot of different data collection with sonar, magnetometer, oh, that's tough to say, and sub-bottom analysis to determine that there were no historical structures present. There are also no archaeological resources associated or identified in the land or lake-based project components. And with the proposal for the substation, there would not require a resultant demolition or alteration of any buildings with potential historic or architectural significance. So there'd be no direct impact on land-based cultural resources. Their whole report basically said no impact, but then on here they put minor long-term impact. I'm not really sure where they got that from, looking as such that it appears there's no impacts. My guess is that it's something they're worried about having missed something that may be found in the lake and just really difficult to find. Maybe some ancient ruins from tribes that used to be in the area. I know glaciers have changed up that area quite a bit, so it's possible that a glacier would have pulled something down and it's just it's hidden deep in the lake. But anyhow, appears as if there's no really impact there. Big concern was aesthetics as well, with the wind turbines being an eyesore. I'm going to move back to this one really quickly. You'll be able to see that they kind of have them in a row this way, north to south, rather than east to west. That's going to help a lot with minimizing that visual field. I'm not sure how much it impacts on how well they can collect wind-based energy. My guess is that it is a positive as the jet stream moves west to east. Therefore, each wind turbine will get the maximum amount of wind exposure. But overall, the visibility will need to be pretty near optimal, and also there must be no present obstructions in the view site if you're standing on the land on the main shore for you to be able to see the windmills. So this aesthetic impact is going to be pretty minor. Same goes with noise. There'll be some noise from the construction, but that's not any different than the typical noise found within cities. It's not going to be any longer lasting or louder or more impactful than any other construction project. And with so much of it happening on the shore and on the lake, it will not be in the vicinity of as many people as something right in the heart of downtown. Okay, and then they found no impact on environmental justice. So I'm going to go to the economic and socioeconomic, which I found to be one of the more interesting outcomes. They listed as negligible, but I'm going to say it's minor, in my opinion. They'd need roughly 500 jobs for construction, and this would pay out an estimated $40 million to those 500 people for the the multi-year approach of these full-time, most of these being full-time equivalent jobs. Beyond the construction and moving forward, there would be 28 full-time equivalents for the operation and maintenance and a yearly earnings of almost $2 million. So that would help bring in a little over $100,000 per year in tax revenue, um, somewhere between 125 and 180. That seems. I know it's a large city that brings in over millions of dollars in taxes, but that's not nothing. Over $100,000 and 28 jobs. Again, large city, a lot of jobs. You can see how they said negligible, but um, I would still list this as a minor impact, as it does help the local economy quite a bit. And then the socioeconomics are, I would agree, it's negligible. There's not really any impact on housing, other job opportunities, or on commercial fisheries. Okay, finishing up, LEEDCO would be working with the Cleveland Water, the Ohio Department of Transportation, and the EPA within their mitigation and monitoring process. They'd want to prevent harmful and or irreparable changes to water quality, transportation, and air quality. As I said earlier, air quality is expected to take a bit of a hit during construction, but then have a net positive long term with the implementation of wind energy. Overall, none of these are expected to be super impactful, expensive, or difficult to monitor issues. Water impact, they will have to be diligent, but it's a very cheap process to monitor it, and there are not any expected large issues with the water quality from construction or operation. So overall, I was a little misconstrued with some of their level of expected impact descriptions. But I do think going through the analysis, which I would say is more important, they were right, hit everything on the ball. I did not find any errors with their analysis. They had a very extensive scoping practice. They were open and allowed for criticism. I don't think there's really any very significant impacts associated with this project. Overall, I'd say it's a net positive and would be a great thing for the city of Cleveland to have. It would be the largest freshwater offshore wind farm in the United States. I think that says a lot about the opportunity present to be an industry leader and a change leader with energy production and looking at these alternative sources. It's definitely not going to power the entire city of Cleveland, but it gives another source, another spot of reliability to make sure that Cleveland residents have the power they need in a cheap, efficient, and clean manner. So thanks for listening. Please let me know any comments or questions you have about my analysis of this EA.